Hey dudes, it's Lerald, and this is a video I've been meaning to make for a while. So, patch 0.2.0 added some really valuable tools for farming citadels, and this was a strategy that I already kind of liked and made videos about in patch 0.1.0, and with the addition of these unique tablets that have been added along with some other stuff, this is probably the single best currency making strategy in the game right now. There are several approaches you can take, and I'm going to kind of break them down here. You've really got some options depending on how hard you want to juice the Citadels, how strong your character is, how tanky and how much damage you can deal, how quickly you can move through maps, and whether you want to focus exclusively on Citadels or just kind of sprinkle them into the rest of a more complete farm strategy. Either way, there is some important stuff that you need to do in order to maximize the amount of currency that you get out of Citadels, because they are really good if you do them right, and pretty bad if you do them wrong. You really can just leave, like 4 divines on the table per Citadel, potentially. So there are a lot of divines to be made, and let's just kind of go ahead and get right into it. So I'm going to start by pulling up my atlas here and just talking a little bit about how Citadels work. You can see the last map I ran was a Citadel. And the way that they work is pretty simple in terms of the way that they're generated. There was a lot of speculation about this in the past, like the first patch of PoE 1, and, people thought like different stuff with towers or whatever. Those videos are still out there to be found, and they were all absolute gamer voodoo. GGG more or less told us that the way that they work is just simply as you progress out into the fog, stuff gets generated, like as you get closer to it. I think it's about 2 screens away. I've had some specific spots where I would look, like here, and there would be no Citadel like right here, and then I would move like 3 steps closer to it and it would pop up. That is literally what happened with this Citadel that I'm at right now. And so you just push further out into the mist. Now, the one important step, though, is you want to move away from the origin point, right? You have the starting point here, the, what is it called? The Ziggurat Refuge, right? So you start at the Ziggurat Refuge, and you just want to go out in one direction. Most people will just choose one way and go in that direction. I have not. I've done the stupid way where I've basically done a great big loop around the Ziggurat Refuge. But now I am just going up, right? There is only up, and you can see off in the distance bright shining lights like this red one here. This is the Stone Citadel, so this would be the Act 3 Citadel. There's also the Copper Citadel and the Iron Citadel. Those would be the Act 2 and Act 1 Citadels, respectively. And I think I have some other ones floating around here in the distance, although maybe not. Maybe I've gone and eaten all of the ones that I had spawned somewhat recently, but I do have this one over here to the west. And yeah, you can kind of see some like glowing little red spots. These are corruption areas that are also visible out in the mist. Here we go. Here's another, this is the Iron Citadel, I believe. Yeah, Iron Citadel, since it's kind of pale blue, so this would be an Act 1 Count Geonor. And that's the thing with all the Citadels, right? All the bosses correspond to the 3 Act bosses that currently exist in the game. They're sort of an Uber version, but not really. They're really just that fight, the base fights in the 3 Act bosses. They're already pretty gnarly on their own. And so that's kind of it as far as the Citadels go, right? Like, you just press out into one direction into the fog and you'll find them, and then you can just kind of ping back and forth between them. Now, the reason that Citadels are valuable is that the bosses of the Citadels will drop these 3 different crisis fragments, and you use these as the Arbiter of Ash key. You need 1 set of each of the 3 for each Arbiter of Ash fight. And Arbiter of Ash drops some pretty valuable items, like the Sacred Flame, which is worth like 20 plus divines. Quite a bit more for a well-rolled one. And the thing that's important about farming Citadels is that by default they'll drop 1 crisis fragment, but you can potentially get them to drop 2 or 3. I don't know that you can get 4 anymore. I certainly haven't been able to get 4, but you can get 2 or 3 very consistently out of them. And with these crisis fragments being worth 1.5 to 2 divines each, we're talking about the difference of making 1.5 divines in a map versus making 5 to 6 divines in a map. Pretty huge. And so the way that you get more of these to drop is actually something that is tutorialized, oddly enough. If you open this little tutorial section next to the map legend in the top left corner of your map, it will say increases to waystone drop chance, give a chance for additional crisis fragments to drop. So previously there were some breakpoints in 0.1.0 that people thought they kind of had figured out. I think one of them was like 900% waystone drop chance. then that waystone drop chance was reduced. I haven't been able to do a Citadel yet with over 500% waystone drop chance, but I've done some under 300% and only gotten one Crisis Fragment, kind of an unlucky roll, I think. And then everything that I've done that was over 300%, I got at least two Crisis Fragments from, so I think that the break point there is probably around 300%, is kind of, below it, you get guaranteed one with a chance for a second, above it you get guaranteed two with a chance for a third. And it does seem like the chance kind of scales with the amount of waystone drop chance that you have. I don't think there's 100% confidence on those numbers yet. They might even be something that changes down the line too. All right, now there is one thing that is coming whenever patch 021 drops, and obviously there's a lot to unpack in this post. I'll do that in a totally different video, but I will just point out here that there are a couple of things that are coming that I think will make this farm strategy even better. For one, Citadel spawning, as they've said here, is being adjusted, so now when you find a Citadel, you're going to find the other two types near it. This is nice. Like, I think if I open up my map here, I have this Iron Citadel here, and then I have another Iron Citadel right over here, and then I think out in the distance, I think there may be somewhere around here is like another Iron Citadel. So, having those not work that way would be great. Now, they do say in the post that this will not be retroactive. You will have to, push further out into the fog in order for this to work. But that's fine, right? It'll just make it easier to kind of get all three of the different types of fragments more consistently, which is better for solo self-found players, but honestly better for Trade League players too, so that one of them isn't, significantly more expensive than the others. So what this means in terms of rolling your maps and what you're wanting to look for, I have a whole map tab devoted to this now, a whole separate tab that I've set up here, is you want to have as much waystone drop chance as you possibly can get on your maps. And so the best way to really accomplish that is to roll up a map to 5 or 6 mods on it, depending on how confident you are in your ability to stay alive. 5 mods would give you 1 revive chance, or one chance to basically, do over if you die. And then you would want to corrupt them and hope that it rerolls all of those prefixes into suffixes, as happened with this modifier, or with this map here. And so one of the key components of really getting your maps to be super, super high on the waystone drop chance is using Distilled Envy. So if I can just show that off on a non-corrupted map here. Here we go. Here's just a random map, right? If I throw Distilled Envies on it, it adds 90% increased waystones found in the area. Right now, this is a 3 prefix, 2 suffix map. Yeah, so it's only got 55% waystone drop chance by default anyway. So now I throw that on there, and now it's at 145. And if I were to exalt it again, it'd be at 185. And so the way that I've rolled a lot of these maps is I'll either roll them up to 5 or 6 modifiers, depending on. Some of them I want to be able to really super juice. Some of them I just want to kind of be a little bit, give myself the chance to die once. And roll them up like that, and then corrupt them and hope it just goes all triple suffixes, which this one didn't. This one just rolled extra mods. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, I think that's 5 prefixes and 5 suffixes. So very dangerous map, potentially very rewarding. But the thing that's kind of funky about this strategy is we don't really care about the prefixes. If we could get quantity and rarity on the prefix, it's not bad. But the overwhelming majority of the profit that we get out of the map that we're running for the Citadel is coming purely from the fragments that are dropped by the boss, and those are exclusively controlled by the suffixes. So the difference between this map that's a 10 modifier map, and let's say this map, or do I have a map around here that has 5 suffixes? Maybe I don't. I think I used them all. Well, anyways, this map that's a 6 suffix map is better than this one that is 5 prefixes and 5 suffixes. And the reason for that, just to nail it down, is this one has 255 waystone drop chance, this one has 235. More drop chance means more chance of getting more fragments, which is just directly converting into currency. I'm not getting multiple raw divines to drop per map, right? So, gotta do everything we can to min-max those crisis fragments. All right, so that's one component of the farm strategy. The next component is the passive tree. We run a very janky passive tree for this. So I'll just show off my kind of standard passive tree. I've talked about this before. This one I like to use for pretty much all of my farm strategies. I'm maximizing pack size, all the magic and rare monsters I can get in the map. You know, getting some of the stuff that's really efficient when it comes to Waystone modifier effect, but not taking every single one of the small points along the way, doing everything I can to juice tablet modifiers and like get more packs and stuff. This is my standard setup. So you can run this for like pathing between Citadels, absolutely something you can do, and you know, maybe I would even recommend doing that, kind of farm up a bunch of Citadels, get them all ready to run, and then swap over to the Citadel strategy once you're able to, well, like once you have like several of them pooled up together, and then do them all at once with this strategy, with this Atlas passive tree setup. So I'm taking every single one of the small passives that give quantity of Waystones, because those do affect the Waystone drop chance in your maps, which means, you know, more crisis fragments. So we got 5 points here, 3 points here, and then another point here for what is that? 8? Yeah, 8 times, is it 4? Yeah, 8 times 4, so 32% Waystone drop chance from that, and then another 10 here, so 42. And then I'm taking all of the map mod effect I possibly can, because it's going to multiply the Waystone drop chance that comes from your suffixes. I'm also taking Grueling Journey and Unstable Energy still, and this is one reason why having a like 5 suffix map is better than like a 5 suffix and 5 prefix map, is Unstable Energies will only choose the suffixes if you only have suffixes, and that'll mean more Waystone drop chance. It does also mean the map is harder. Suffixes are what make maps harder, you know, extra damage, less cooldown recovery rate, reduced extra damage taken from crits, all that kind of stuff does make the maps harder. So this is very much a risk-reward strategy, unlike some of the other strategies that pretty much every other strategy where you're emphasizing tons of prefixes that have like quantity and rarity, and it's not risk-reward, it's non-risk reward, which is great, but you know, yeah, this is a bit more of a traditional PoE setup. Now in this setup, you also do want to pay attention to your bossing tree. So you can do whatever you want in this middle branch here. You can do, I just did strong boxes because what if I find the fun one, the gold cost one, that one's fun, but you can take shrine instead to get through the map a little faster if you want. I'm taking quantity over rarity, and then, you know, getting 10% quantity of Waystones dropped here, and then organized forces for +1 level doesn't really matter because you are going to irradiate the map anyway. And then instead of taking Beyond Reality, which I've kind of come to like for like general mapping and especially doing like map boss farming strategies, I'm dropping that because those corruption monsters are actually a little dangerous in what is already a very dangerous map. And I'm just taking this point over here for 4% extra quantity of Waystones, because again, if I'm able to get another Crisis Fragment out of the deal, get another couple Divines out of that, that's definitely worth it to not have to deal with the extra mobs that are being spawned by corruption as well. All right, I got into editing, and I just wanted to add one thing for players who are maybe like a little more overwhelmed. These small passives that add to map boss difficulty, if you want to drop some of these points out, it will make the boss easier. Like, you know, if you drop like these top, whatever, basically all the way down to like Radiant Waystones, that is a thing you can do. You'll drop about 2 points of map boss difficulty. It will actually make the bosses easier, a little bit less rewarding, but not significantly so. I would at least take Spoils of War and Radiant Waystones. You know, you're giving up like 8% quantity of Waystones dropped, but you are making the boss basically going from like a tier 4 boss down to a tier 2 by dropping like all of these points in the upper half of the tree. So that is a thing you can do as well if you're not wanting to push a difficulty too high, or if you're wanting to push a difficulty much higher by running like a 6 suffix Waystone. You know, that is also an option for kind of taking some of the teeth out of that fight by dropping these points. You know, allows you to kind of compensate for it elsewhere. The only other mechanic that I'm really using is Delirium, and so I'm just taking the left half of Delirium because I'm mostly getting Delirium into my maps, or I am getting Delirium into my maps via emotions, and all the left half are the only ones that work with emotions. So kind of only got that one choice. As for the other league mechanics, I think it's best to not try to interact with them at all when you're doing the bossing map. I mean, like, you can do them after you've killed the boss if they're on there already, but I'm not trying to spawn any of this in there, because anytime I'm spending, like, I don't know, doing an expedition is time I'm spending not killing a boss, and the boss is definitely more profitable than an expedition, you know, minute for minute. Now, one thing to consider is sort of the interstitial spots, the spots where you're going from like, okay, I do this boss and now I'm making my way over here to come to this one, and then I'm killing this boss, and like, all right, you know, I've done that. Now I want to make my way down to wherever that other boss is that I have over here somewhere. Here he is. Oh, of course, on the other side of a big body of water, right? So like for all of the maps that you're doing in between, it's kind of up to you what mechanics you want to put in there. I do think that doing like Breach, Ritual, especially an Expedition, will slow you down, make it like take more time. That may not be a problem if you kind of want to mix it up and just do like a mixture of like some heavy farm strategies, where you're farming something in an area and then branch off and pick off a Citadel. But if you're exclusively looking for Citadels, you really just kind of want to zip through the areas. And so my preferred approach for those is to use a combo of like Delirium, just because I kind of like Delirium mirror farming and they do encourage me to go faster. Irradiated tablets, just because, you know, add some levels, get a little bit more out of it. And then the Grand Project. And the Grand Project is a really awesome, unique precursor tablet. I think people really undervalued this at the start of the league. They were going for absolutely nothing. I wish I had stocked up. I've burned through quite a lot of them in the last couple of days. But you can see how it works, right? When you slap it in, like I did with this tower, every single map in the tower is now accessible. I kind of just wish this is how towers worked by default. I almost think people might like towers if this is how towers worked by default. You know, being able to just jump right into the middle of the corruption nexus or whatever, very cool. It's also very good for like zipping from, you know, hitting the Citadel and then skipping over a bunch of maps along the way and just skipping right along to the next and then dropping one here, skipping right along to the next area and so on. You can literally jump from tower to tower at points by using this as well. The downside is that they are a little expensive because people have realized, oh, this means I can hit like, you know, 3 to 5 times more Citadels per hour by being able to skip, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maps, sometimes quite a lot more. And so, yeah, I mean, there is a pretty good demand for them because they are so useful. The other downside to them, and I would say maybe the bigger downside when you are in an area that has like multiple towers overlapping a single Citadel, is all they add is that they irradiate. They make it so that you can hit all the maps in the area without having to like be connected. That's it. You're not getting any quantity of items drops. You're not getting any quantity of waystone drops. And that is really, really probably the most important thing in terms of like guaranteeing that you get more crisis fragments, is using these regular boring precursor tablets in the towers that overlap with the bosses or with the Citadels that have this particular modifier on the suffix, increased quantity of waystones found in your maps. So this is a modifier that only exists on the boring precursor tablet. It can scale from 10 to 20%, and if you're able to overlap 5 or 6 of these onto a single Citadel, you might be able to get over 100% of extra quantity of waystone drop chance, and then potentially, if you get lucky on this modifier right here, Remnant of Power, if it doubles the effect of the precursor tablets, you might be looking at an extra 240, 250% waystone drop chance just from tablets on a tower or on a Citadel that's overlapped by several towers. So there is another tablet you can use if you're able to get like really, really good tower overlaps onto a Citadel, and that would be this one, Visions of Paradise. I did have a couple of these. I used them. I wouldn't say I felt like I made my money back on them. Ultimately, they cost, I think, about 3 divines a piece. So they're really only worth using if you get really lucky with tower overlaps and you're like juicing the map very, very, very hard. They're a pretty big gamble even still. You know, there's always the risk that you die, right? They're basically an item that has a group play cost built into it. And for groups, like, they can make that 3 divine cost per tablet profitable pretty easily, but for solo players, that is hard to do. With that being said, if you have a really juiced map and you throw this on, or a really juiced Citadel, and you throw this into a tablet that's overlapping it, you basically get to run the tablet, or you basically get to run the Citadel twice. You get to run it once while it's irradiated. That will remove the irradiation instead of just like completing the map, and then you get to run it a second time. This is great, but if you fail on the first run, or the second run for that matter, it will just fail the map completely. So you really are, it's quite a gamble. I really don't recommend using Visions of Paradise unless you are a like true high roller. I experimented with it and died and wasted 3 divines, just, you know, for the sake of science. And yeah, I would say, you know, if you're at the point where you're like game to run these, you probably didn't need a guide on this in the first place. You're probably making a guide. All right, another tablet I wanted to talk about and kind of caution against is this one, Season of the Hunt. This causes the map bosses to be hunted by Asmiri spirits. This is something I really liked in regular map bossing strategies. I used it in Citadel farming, really didn't like it. I felt like it made the bosses much tankier and didn't add any fragment drops from them at all. So I felt like it was a real bad risk-reward option for this strategy. Alright, so like I said, for moving between Citadels, I think that the best option, obviously Grand Project is really good if you're really trying to zip between Citadels instead of just like sitting and farming in one area. And then I like Delirium Mirrors, and then you kind of have a couple of options. You could do Precursor Tablets just to add an extra level to all the maps that you're going to hit along the way. You can also use Overseer Tablets. I like these. There is a modifier for Overseer Tablets that causes the map bosses to drop extra Waystones, but it's only 5 to 10% increased quantity as opposed to the 10 to 20% that you can get out of the regular Precursor Tablets. So I do think that the Overseer Tablets are like very undertuned for dropping on Citadels, but for dropping in between Citadels and having maps where you can like run in, boss rush, and be done and not even have to kill all the rares, I do think that's kind of nice. That's just my preference anyway. Alright, so how profitable is this strategy? With each Citadel giving you 2 to 3 Arbiter of Ash fragments and fragments being worth like 1.5 to 2 Divines each, you're making, I would say, 3 to 4 Divines per Citadel on the low end and 5 to 6 Divines per Citadel on the high end. If you're not using any of the unique tablets, if you're not using Grand Project even to get between any of the Citadels, then, you know, you're probably only going to find about 1 Citadel per hour, maybe less, maybe more. You know, kind of there's going to be some RNG in there, right? But let's say it's an average of 1 Citadel per hour. That's like 3 to 6 Divines per hour, depending on your drop RNG. It's not bad. I mean, it's only coming from Arbiter fragments, so not amazing, but not including literally anything else that drops, it's not bad either. If you're using Grand Project, I think that hitting 3 Citadels per hour is pretty reasonable once you've gotten a little bit of distance out from the Ziggurat Refuge. That's potentially a low estimate if you have a good build and you're playing very efficiently, moving through maps very quickly. They do have an associated cost. I think it is about 1/4 of a Divine if you want to buy them in bulk. But if you're using like 2 tablets for every Citadel you find, that's like 15% of your profit lost at the benefit of finding, I don't know, 3 times as many Citadels per hour, maybe more. Even if you're using 4 tablets per Citadel, which I think is a lot less likely. In my experience, it was more like 2 or 3. You know, we're still looking at a loss of 30% of your profits for the benefit of roughly tripling your Citadels per hour. It's still a very good trade. So even in the worst case scenario, I think you're going to clear 3 Divines of profit per Citadel. If you're clearing 3 an hour, 3 times 3 is pretty easy. You know, 9 Divines. I think 10 Divines per hour, once you include all the rest of the random drops you find along the way, is extremely attainable with this strategy. I think it is a low estimate. The only real question is whether you enjoy it, and that's going to be a matter of personal preference, really. I think it's fun as an occasional change of pace, but for me, ultimately, I prefer regular juice mapping over boss hunting as my standard gameplay loop. But again, this is kind of a fun, you know, something to mix it up a little bit. And with that being said, I think this is a lot more consistently profitable than most of the mapping strategies that I've played with so far this patch. It's definitely a top tier strategy, there's no question on that front, and it's super easy to trade those fragments for Divines at Alva, so there's not even any annoying busy work after you've finished farming either. It's all pretty good. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it, and if you want to support us even further, consider becoming a channel member. Thanks for watching. Bye.